Well, Disney had their quarter three earnings report this morning, and after Comcast earnings report in their quarter three showed that their theme parks were down over 10%, a lot of people were very curious what was Disney's going to look like on the theme park side. And well, we got the answer for that. And definitely the crowds have softened a bit, but they also had some information about going forward into 2025 that might be a little surprising to some people. But we're going to go over that in an article here from Blog Mickey. So let's just get right into it. So, hi, I'm Jared with Capture the Magic. And this article here from Blog Mickey, and it said Disney forecasts lower demand at theme parks into 2025. It says earlier this morning, the Walt Disney Company released earnings results for the third quarter. The experiences division saw a 2% uptick in revenue to 8.386 billion, but operating income was down year over year by 3%. The operating income side of the business was dragged down by the domestic theme parks after that segment recorded a 6% slide compared to last year, despite a 3% increase in revenue. International theme parks and consumer products were both up 2% in operating income this year. Disney says that the demand moderation, which just read that as that's a weird way of saying lower crowds. They sometimes phrase things very strange in these. Um, that they saw in quarter three. So basically, the way to read this, Disney says that the lower crowds that they saw in the third quarter results could, quote, impact the next few quarters. Disney says that they are actively monitoring attendance and guest spending and aggressively managing our cost base, but say that quarter four operating income will likely record a higher year over year decline than what we saw just in quarter three. That's quite a statement right there. They're basically saying that not only is the attendance down right now, it's going to be down going forward for a bit as well. So again, some of the wording in here, they word things to, I think they word them to not have the, I guess you could call them trigger words, where it's like, attendance is down. We're going to say demand moderation. Again, I think they're just trying to avoid certain terms that they know people don't like to see, especially investors. While we're actively monitoring attendance and guest spending and aggressively managing our cost base, we expect quarter four experiences segment operating income to decline by mid-single digits versus the prior year. Reflecting these underlying dynamics as well as impacts at Disneyland Paris from a reduction in normal consumer travel due to the Olympics and some cyclical softening in China. The one thing I don't understand, I don't get how the Olympics is a negative for Disneyland Paris. If the Olympics are seeing a surge in tourism, you would assume that would be a good for a theme park. But I don't. They're claiming it's not good. I don't know much about the travel on that end of things, but it seems odd to me. It says in prepared executive statements, Disney says that the recent results are due to recent economic uncertainty that is impacting customers, but they say that they remain confident about the long-term opportunities in the experiences division. Disney said that they, quote, are continuing to significantly outperform pre-pandemic levels with both segment revenue and operating income in quarter three, exceeding quarter three 2019 by nearly 30%, which basically is due to Genie Plus / Lightning Lane, I would assume. I mean, that's the biggest jump in the revenue in the parks has been that product. Basically, the earnings calls are not fun to listen to. They did this one a little bit different in terms they didn't actually have a presentation. They just basically took questions and released the earnings report here. Now, the thing to note, this wasn't surprising. Comcast had reported that they saw a almost 11% decrease in their domestic theme parks as well. Again, I think this points to, obviously there's economic factors. When it comes to Disney versus Universal, which I think a lot of people are looking at this, I definitely wasn't surprised to see, or I kind of predicted that Universal would see a decrease in attendance given you have Epic Universe opening next year. And a lot of people, which, logic just sitting here would think, okay, well, if I'm going to take this big trip, spend a lot of money, why don't we wait until this brand new theme park is open before we go? Especially considering the economy not doing well, people are still wanting to do things, but they're going to get the most out of their money. So saving money for that. And that was even before the economy really downturned. So that part's not too surprising. With Disney, for instance, there's, I think that they probably figured Tiana's Bayou Adventure would be a big driver for them, which it turns out it hasn't been. I do think the economy obviously is a factor in this. I do. I think that's undoubtable. And it would be silly to say that that's not a factor. But I also think when it comes to Disney, again, you have a lot of the customer base that's a little fatigued. I would say, at quote, the nickel and diming of everything being more expensive. What used to be included is now extra. I think in a way, they've exhausted that fan base to the point where maybe they did multiple trips before. I'm not saying they're not going anymore necessarily. Some people aren't, but a lot of people are just looking at going less frequently because of the expense. The other thing I do actually think that's going on, and I have no way, there's no way to prove this, and so we'll have to see when Epic Universe opens. But I do think the looming, I guess you could call it the looming opening of Epic Universe coming in, and ideally we would think the early part of 2025. I do think that's affecting Disney World. I think that a lot of people are really excited about Epic Universe, and I think there's a lot of people that are just putting off Orlando trips in general and waiting until Epic Universe opens. And then more than likely, like when they go to Epic Universe, they may also go to Disney, but I think it could be in a reduced capacity. Maybe they just add on, Magic Kingdom, Hollywood Studios, and or Epcot. Probably more than likely, Animal Kingdom is the most affected park on Disney's end by Epic Universe. But again, there's really no way to prove that. That's a theory of mine that I do think that Epic Universe is sort of driving all this potentially on top of the fact of the economy. So I think you throw those two things in together, on top of the fact of what Disney has been doing, this isn't too surprising to see. They actually came out and said earlier in the year that they were expecting softer crowds into the summer, which we have seen this summer. The crowds have been less and less. And now they're saying going into the end of the year is going to be that way, and into next year is going to be that way. Now, again, the thing that's going to be very telling is when we learn about when Epic Universe does plan on opening, as that is right now, that's up in the air. There's a lot of rumors out there, but when we get an idea of when that's opening, how does Disney start seeing their bookings for that time period? Because I think Disney is looking at this as they're going to get a bump from Epic Universe. And, historically speaking, they're not wrong, because back in 2014, when the Wizarding World opened, Universal saw an uptick about 35% of their attendance, but Disney saw a boost as well because people, coming into Orlando also went to Disney World. But a lot of things have changed since then. I think a lot of brand sentiments have changed since then. And Universal has changed in that with Epic Universe, they're trying to get people to stay, for a week, make a choice between them and Disney. So I think you could see it actually flip-flopped, where it used to be that you went on a Disney World vacation and you added a Universal Studios day or two onto your trip. I think you could see that be flipped, where people are coming into Universal to go check out Epic Universe and the other parks, staying for a week or 3 or 4 days, however that is, and then going over to Disney for a day or two. So I think you could see the behavior of people visiting Orlando or theme parks in the area be flipped in that way. And if that is the case, I'm going to be very curious to see how Disney sort of postures about that in their earnings reports, because that's definitely something that they don't want to see. Or if they do see a boost in the parks, but Universal sees a giant boost in their parks, also how do they sort of have the messaging about that? But again, that's all just conjecture. That's just me guessing at this point. I have to wait and see how that plays out. Obviously, Disney does have D23 coming up in a few days about some of their park announcements, which we're expecting to see a lot of things being announced. So we'll have to see what that does in terms of, morale or the stock price. As of this morning, the stock price is still under $90. It didn't take a huge dip, but it didn't go up either. So I think investors are sort of just sitting on it right now. There's not a sell-off. There's not a buying up of it. But again, the market has been down as a whole the last few days and this week. So, and of course, there's a lot of things you could discuss about the Disney stock price with everything else that they have going on. But just looking at the theme parks, they are forecasting a lower demand going into 2025. So I won't be surprised if there are more ticket deals being offered toward the end of the year. And obviously, looking at whenever Epic Universe opens, I'm really curious if they're going to run some very aggressive deals. I'm sure they're going to have parades and shows that they're going to try and roll out for people to come into the parks, next summer. So we'll have to wait and see what they do in response to that. But as of right now, obviously, I don't think it's a shocker. The parks have been down. But the reason the parks being down is a big deal on the Disney side is the theme parks make up for 70% of the revenue of the entire company. 10 years ago, I think it was like 25%, something like that. So the theme parks are the thing that drives the company at this point, even with the success of the movies out there. Those are making money, but they pale in comparison to how much the parks typically bring in. So when those see lower demand and they're not making as much money, that's definitely something that at least investors, I'm sure on that end of things, worry about. And we'll have to wait and see how that affects going into 2025 with Epic Universe and Disney and all that sort of stuff. But that is going to be it for this video. If you like this video, please like it and subscribe to the channel, as we do lots of coverage of Universal Studios, Epic Universe, Disney World, and pop culture news. And let us know in the comments what you think about all of this. And until next time, we will see you in the parks.